This is Natalie Pace, and today I have the honor of interviewing Professor, Doctor, and Secretary Stephen Chu. He is the former Secretary of Energy for the United States. He is also a Nobel Prize winning physicist. He has many patents, many honorary degrees, many white papers, and he's here to tell us about the power of the individual. So we can be the change we wish to see. We can create cleaner air, CO2 drawdown, energy efficiency, clean energy, some of which will surprise you because Secretary Chu actually works at Stanford University. He's one of the bike commuters there, and it's one of the reasons why Stanford is a platinum bike-friendly university. So, with no further ado, we will be interviewing Stephen Chu. Please share this interview with your friends and colleagues. It's going to be posted on YouTube at Earth Gratitude and on podcast at Substack at Natalie Pace. Okay, Dr. Chu, I first heard you at the Milk and Global Institute way back in probably 2003 talking about climate change. So I'm sure that it can get a little, I don't know. I guess the normal person might be a little exasperated by it, but I heard a quote from you saying that even if you're a climate realist, you have to work really hard. And that's kind of what I want to focus on now. Are there things that individuals can really do themselves in their own communities that will even make a difference at all?
Yeah, a lot. First, I think one could be very conscious of and the choices you make. Now, in your background, you have a big country, and and people drive everywhere. But I think I see a changing trend among young people. They used to be 40 years ago. You have a house in the suburbs, you commute an hour, and you work in the city.
Yeah.
Now they are saying, no, I don't need the three-bedroom house with a plot of land. They're quite willing to live in an apartment in the city. And in fact, in San Francisco, it's an anti-commute. People go and work at Stanford and they commute back to the city to live.
Wow.
These are all good things because in the city is much more compact. You have a chance of establishing good public transportation and much less driving. And so those are all good things. I think again, among younger people mostly, it's been pointed out that when you raise crops to feed animals, to feed people,
Yeah.
it's much less efficient than raising crops to feed people. Um, and that one can get a lot of the protein through vegetables and other crops. Uh, and so I see a growing number of people, even among older people, my wife and I eat a lot less meat and much smaller portions.
Yeah.
Uh, so there are personal choices one can make on how you live, where you live, how you live, things like that. Um, Now, solar has become very inexpensive. It's increasingly inexpensive, and um, and EVs are becoming competitive. They're not quite competitive yet,
Right.
but I think within 10 years, they'll probably, based on it's dominated by the price of batteries, that within 10 years, let's say, they will have the same purchase as a comparable car.
But if
But
you're considering the fuel that you put in and the savings on that, maybe it is on comparable, or what do you think?
I think right now the cost of ownership is comparable, but the first costs are a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Once the first costs, and a lot of decisions are dominated by first costs, it becomes much more attractive. Uh, Now, there's one thing, and there's this range anxiety that people have. If they want to go 500 miles uh, to recharge, you have to recharge it once, let's say,
Yeah.
to add 250 miles. And they don't want to sit around and wait for a half an hour, an hour. Um, the batteries are becoming much faster. In addition to the price going down, it's projected the price will go down another factor too, but they also are charging much faster. The latest which is probably we don't need that, is BYD is now advertising you can go 250 miles, roughly 250 miles in 5 minutes of charge.
Oh, wow.
Uh, right. Now, I think 5, 6 minutes of charge, go 200 miles, means that, as I put it, the battery lasts longer than the human bladder. It's rare that you would want to drive more than 200 miles without a rest stop. If your car is charging while you're discharging, you don't care.
Yeah. Well, also, I want to point out, and I think that this is a trend among younger folks, especially if you get the infrastructure to support it. Stanford is a platinum-friendly university. And I've seen video of you on a bike, and I've heard statistics that up to a third of both the staff, professors, and students are actually, either commuting by public transit or bike, certainly not by single occupancy vehicles. So, do you want to speak a little bit to that? Do you ride a bike?
Yes, I ride a bike. I ride a bike to work. I also ride a bike for exercise.
Yeah.
But now it's a privilege to ride a bike to work if because, at Stanford because housing is so expensive.
Yes.
But throughout my adult life, really, literally, from the first house I bought when I was at Bell Labs, and even when I was renting at Berkeley, I wanted to be within biking distance of work. And biking distance means even if it's drizzling, you'll take the bike because the parking is so atrocious. Now, if it's downpouring, that's a different story. But
Right.
and California doesn't have that much rain, so yes, biking is a very big deal. It's also better for your health.
Much and better air quality. And when you do have gridlock, I oftentimes will have my phone showing how much faster I'm walking than a lot of the gridlock traffic. So I agree. And just FYI, folks, I used a bike to help to save costs when I went back to college with a young son because it can really save a lot of money, right? Parking, gas, auto insurance, it really adds up.
But for me, I'm a 15-minute bike ride away. I can go door to door faster than driving, parking, and walking. Uh,
Wow.
walking to from the parking structure to where my office is. So bicycles offer a lot of that. Can you hold on just a minute? You can stop recording or okay, hold on just a minute. Okay.
All right, so other things that individuals can do. We're in the middle of Plastic Free July. So, how
Mhm.
do you feel about? I did hear you talking about it, that recycling really should be the last choice. But do you want to talk to us about shifting our mindset around, the three R's, which they used to say just reduce, reuse, recycle, to the seven R's, where recycle's really not even on that list. It's considered the last resort.
Yeah, I think we I've got lured into a very convenient use once throw away sort of mentality. It's driven by a lot of industries that make a lot of money
Mhm.
making plastic containers. Surprisingly, in the oil and gas industry, transportation fuel may be 80 plus percent of the sales, and only 20% goes to chemicals and plastics, but they make more money in chemicals and plastics.
Oh, it's
So
higher margins. Wow.
So, so they're incentivized to try to get people to use plastic containers, plastic wraps, plastic everything. Now,
Polyester, plastic.
in some places, people have been to have, when you want a cup of water, let's say you're a flight lounge, it used to be a plastic cup and water. Now they have glasses. You use the glass, you wash it.
Yeah.
The amount of energy required to wash the glass is far less than the amount of energy to make the plastic, and then if it goes in the landfill, it's terrible for lots of reasons. Um, then you say, well, we want biodegradable, but that means you hold carbon out of the ground, make something plastic, and then turn it into carbon dioxide and methane.
Right.
So it just adds to the greenhouse gases.
Well, I
So
think we should talk about methane for a moment because I did see a documentary that was showing some of the off-gassing of some of these chemical plants. And, that's not really talked about a lot unless you actually live in a fence line community.
yeah, there's a lot of fugitive emissions, and there's a lot of flaring. Flaring limits the amount of methane emissions, but it's so wasteful. And the prize is actually oil, not gas. Gas was up until very recently only been a byproduct. And so we used to flare, we, the world, used to flare a lot. Major oil and gas producers, let's say Russia, still have a huge amount of flaring. So but there's also leakage. You stick a hole in the ground looking for oil and gas, and with the advent of remote laser sensing of methane, people are discovering no, the oil industry's not measuring the amount when you stick a hole in the ground, it kind of oozes out due to the damaged strata.
Mhm.
And they kind of tend to underestimate the amount of emissions from the time of discovery to time where they can actually capture and produce the gas. But
Mhm.
mostly, in order to take the gas, you need to start have gas storage, gas pipelines, and it's far different than an oil pipeline.
Yeah.
Uh, when I was Secretary of Energy, I found out that among the gas distribution system in the United States, it's a little bit leaky at the level of 1 or 2%, but the utility companies get to charge their customers for the gas they deliver to the home plus the gas leaks out.
Oh,
It's only 1 or 2%, but it,
right.
and so they're incentivized, of course, not have a bad leak that could
Right.
cause an explosion. But I would say we got to change the law. There's no incentive for them to fix the minor gas leaks. And even 1 or 2%, especially if it's a potent greenhouse gas like methane, add up. So there's all sorts of crazy things that have been going on. They're still going on.
Yeah. And as a consumer, I mean, I've learned a lot about even energy efficiency things in your home that renters can do. So, I mean, energy efficiency could be a part of that too, right?
Yeah, it is a huge deal. When in the house I currently live in, immediately unscrewed all the incandescent bulbs, or unscrewed them enough so you can't turn them on. There's a lot of built-in lighting that's very expensive.
Yeah.
And so then replaced them with first compact fluorescents, but now LEDs. LEDs, they last thousands of hours. And so there's no comparison now in terms of uh, the amount you pay for an LED light bulb and the years of service you get out of that.
Right.
And we're talking 1/4, 1/5, even less. And the good thing is, you can buy them in adjustable colors for lots of reasons. I think people prefer warmer reds than bright daylight, and
Right.
they hate blue. And so it reminds me of this old famous scene from Streetcar Named Desire when Blanche Dubois,
Yeah.
puts all these lanterns over things and make very dim
Yes.
light. It makes this kind of red glow.
It
Uh,
helps.
so the LEDs are a really good example of how technology has just completely uh, overtaken incandescent bulbs.
And it's like what, an 85% reduction in the actual lighting cost, right? Or the amount of energy required.
Yeah, including, 1,500 hours is typical of a light bulb, 750, 1,500 hours.
Yeah.
Uh, More on the 750 hour for the life of the bulb. LEDs, you can easily get them to be in the 5,000 plus to 20,000 hour range. So that's enormous convenience. But again, we're talking about cost of ownership to keep your house lit.
And some people are worried about health benefits of LED lighting. Do you think that that is a concern as a scientist?
Uh, Health
Health
benefits.
risks. I don't know what it is, but I've been seeing a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm not going to use LEDs. There's health risks."
Uh, there are health risks in using incandescents that break because there's a
Yeah.
little bit of mercury in them.
Right.
I don't know of any health risks. The only thing I could think of is that the earlier LEDs didn't actually try to get the full continuous color spectrum of natural light.
Oh,
either natural light at dawn or dusk, or it's reddish, or natural light in high noon.
right.
But they've gotten much better at this. So instead of just a few sharp lines that give you the sensation of white light or reddish white light, so that's the only thing I really know about.
All right. Well, we'll follow up
Surprisingly,
on it if I find anything that you can
yeah.
actually say, oh, that is complete nonsense, or yeah, maybe. Okay, so let's jump into grid clean energy because some cities like Santa Monica, and I know that part of this might be, offsetting or something, but they claim that they're 100% renewable. California is very high renewables. Washington State, Oregon State, high renewables. What about the cost of this? I was watching a lecture where you were ta saying that the cost of solar and wind was so much lower than natural gas, even though we do need a little bit for energy security. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. If you think in the early days when solar and wind were 10, 20% of the electrical supply,
Yeah.
we had all the, standard fossil fuel, and so it was just a little dog. Now California is about 60%, with plans to go to 85%. We have 10% nuclear, so it's 70% carbon free, of which 60 is renewables. Um, and at that point, all, as you mentioned, the backup systems, just in case the wind stops blowing and the sun stops shining for a week or two, we do not have more than overnight storage
Okay.
in the world, except in the form of hydroelectric power.
Right.
And so that's one of the real issues about this. So you need additional storage, and 5 and 10 years ago, even today, batteries are pretty expensive, but the really good news is the utility scale batteries are coming down very rapidly. There are projections based on IRENA, which is an international think group that studies these things.
Right.
They are saying in China to have solar power plus enough battery to give you 95% accessibility. That means only 5% of the time you might need to turn on a diesel generator.
Right.
That it will be about 3 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Right. Now that's about an order of magnitude less expensive than retail prices, let's say where I live in California. And that's the low end, not for people who have pools, hot tubs, and air conditioners. I live in a house that has none of those. And so that means the rates in California are stratified, they're progressively stratified so that people who use very little energy don't get charged that much, but when they start to ramp up the energy to heat their pool or their hot tub, it begins to increase. So I'm in the lowest bracket, and I'm still paying about 35 cents a kilowatt hour. It's crazy. And until I knowing I'm paying that, I have solar now, but
Right. Right. Do we want to ask you what your electric bill is with solar?
I have to look because it's only been installed last month.
Oh, okay.
It
So it's going
took
to
me a
be up and
while.
coming. I mean, I've seen astonishing things. I just interviewed the director of engineering for Ritz-Carlton in a very frigid area of Vail, Colorado, and he says his electric bill now that he's installed solar is $16. It's basically the grid fee in there at $16 a month. And
Yeah,
for the winter, it's still higher.
it's going to be a good fee for me because it's just my wife and I live in this house, but we're not going to live here forever. So the next people own this house. It's a 3 bedroom house, so they could have as many as 2 kids or
Yeah.
more, and they'll use far more electric, even though all the lighting has been replaced. Uh, we don't need air conditioning if you're attentive, meaning the following. We just had a very huge heat wave, 100 degrees outside our house. It doesn't get above the 72 inside. The way I do this is at night I open up all the windows. The nights in California are cool. I
Yeah.
cool down the house. Morning, I shut all the windows. All the blinds are very light colored, light scattering double things. And so the house stays cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. without any air conditioning. But you have to be attentive to those things. I mean, every night I have to look at the forecast for not only the next day, but the next couple of days. Because if California might have a heat wave, it could be in the high 90s for 3 or 4 days, and it gets increasingly difficult to keep that heat inertia. But it's manageable. As I said, it rarely, if ever, gets above 75.
And I know that, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but by state grid. But do you have any tips for people who might be living in Florida or even West Virginia, where it's really fossil fuel powered grid? And what can they do? I mean, I guess they could install solar on their roofs. Is that, and but a lot of times even there's kickback from the utility where they feel like they can't really do that. What do you think is a good solution for them?
Well, I think they're going to have to work with their political leaders. The utility companies initially, there was a law in California, for example, said if you have solar, you get to sell back to the utility what it costs, what you were buying it for. Now that is unfair to the utility companies because
Yeah,
they're responsible for, the security, the reliability, all these other things.
right,
And then it went the other way to less than 1/10. And so we're selling electricity back to PG. We're buying it, let's say 30 cents a kilowatt hour. We're selling back at 1 or 2 cents a kilowatt hour, which
right,
is
right,
ridiculous.
right.
We generate roughly twice as much electricity as we use.
Mm,
So they're now they got a huge subsidy. Um, and so there's some middle ground that makes more sense. But I can't emphasize enough that because solar is becoming less expensive, because and you wouldn't want a battery in your home. I would have a modest 10 kilowatt hour battery, but I'm also finally gonna not trade in, but I have a 2001 BMW, which is a great car. It's a
right.
325. It's a compact car, but it's getting old and everything's wearing out, and so I'm buying an EV
Ah,
now. So this EV's got 85 kilowatt hour battery, and within 6 months, you can buy a system that allows the home to be run by solar, the battery storage in your solar, or the car.
mm,
Okay, so now 10 kilowatt hour, 89 kilowatt hour battery means you're completely grid independent. There could be a huge blackout, a huge earthquake that
yeah,
brings down the power for a week, and it doesn't matter anymore. Because if you don't use that much electricity and you don't have air conditioning, you essentially can even out all of that.
so
So that's one of the things that you get a real energy independence, but it's much more important internationally because the cheap utility batteries and the cheap solar will do what the cell phone did to telecommunications. You bypass telephone lines.
mm,
You can think seriously about bypassing electric lines, especially in less populated areas, because if you have enough solar that you can get 95% reliability and a little bit of backup, and to have a gas generator and that just have them sit idle, you turn them on for an hour every week to make sure it still works, and
right.
there's a lot of other things. You have real independence without the grid. And so I can easily see in developing countries, in areas that don't connect to the grid because the population is so small and the distances are vast. Western Alaska, for example, is
Mhm.
not connected to the grid of Alaska.
Interesting.
So before they had, now Alaska's doesn't get much sun, but they get their energy from trucked in diesel fuel, which is very expensive.
Right. And I've heard even Hawaii a lot of times has import rather than just solar. I'm sure that has to do, certainly doesn't have to do with logic, but anyway, I want to stay away from politics if we can. And I'm going to segue into something that's a lot easier to understand. How about white hydrogen?
Okay, so there are lots of colors of hydrogen. So let me explain to viewers.
Okay.
Gray hydrogen, today, most of our hydrogen comes from methane, and you convert methane into hydrogen CO2 as a byproduct, and they vent the CO2. So, in terms of greenhouse gases, burning hydrogen, which makes water,
Yeah.
there's no CO2 emissions. The fact that you turn methane into hydrogen means it's comparable methane. So, you're not doing any better.
Okay.
Then there's um, blue hydrogen, where you capture 99.5% of the CO2, which is a great start, but there's still 5 or 10% left. And there's a couple of percent, between 2 and 5% of the fugitive emissions when you're poking holes in the ground looking for natural gas.
Got it.
So, and then there's green hydrogen, where you have completely green, carbon-free sources of energy, solar, wind, nuclear, whatever, and you make electrolysis. That's still pretty expensive.
Okay.
Now, the new type of hydrogen, called white hydrogen, is when there are deposits of iron ore deep underground. And if you pump water down there, you change the oxidation state of the iron. And a byproduct of that is hydrogen.
Mm.
It's being the prospect that you can get hydrogen underground on demand, because you squirt in the water when you need it, and the fact that it's geological and huge reservoirs open up the possibility. The dreamers say it could be as cheap as a half dollar per kilogram of hydrogen, as opposed to, I don't know, three or four. Uh, Green hydrogen's really expensive. It's six.
Right.
And so if that works, or if we get electrolysis and solar cheap enough, by the way, of in Australia and the Middle East, the whole solar project takeoff agreement, land, capex, maintenance, everything, operating costs, uh, are something like 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour. It's crazy. Uh, and then the projection of 3 to 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour, including 95% storage, absolutely world changing.
Yeah.
And so these are very exciting things. Now, if you get electricity at 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour or 2 cents a kilowatt hour, then green hydrogen electrolysis hydrogen may be okay. But we'll see about the white hydrogen. Because don't have any experience, you get euphoric estimates, and I've seen as low as 50 cents.
Right. Right. Is there any danger with hydrogen? I had heard some chemists say that it was volatile or there were actual, other things involved than just extracting.
Well, with enough air, enough oxygen, you can get an explosion. The other dangerous thing about hydrogen, it is very leaky.
Mm,
And I spoke about the leaking of natural gas, where uh, it's far less leaky, and and you can detect leaks with lasers, which means you can do remote sensing. Hydrogen is a symmetric molecule. It has no strong coupling to the light, so it doesn't have a really optical signature. And so the known way, there are two known ways of detecting hydrogen. One is through mass spectrometry, which means you literally have in a vacuum chamber a big magnet, you ionize the gas and you bend it. And hydrogen being very low mass, very light, it bends an entire circle. And there's no helium around, so there's no background. But
mm,
that's a mass spectrometer, and you can miniaturize it, make it this big. That's the good news. The other good news is drones are going to revolutionize that. So if you have a pipeline, you have to detect the leak.
mm,
And since there's no remote sensing, that means you fly the drone next to the pipeline, go up and down, and that's a possibility. If you don't have a pipeline, we transport hydrogen in steel tanks at 10,000 pounds per square inch, hugely expensive
mm,
trucks and heavy steel tanks. So you need a distribution system. And so it's possible to get a hydrogen distribution system. Initially, you can put in 10% hydrogen in natural gas. and it's okay.
Mm.
But if you really want a hydrogen pipeline, you've got to um, be able to detect it because hydrogen itself has the effect of a greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. It's not a good thing. And
Okay.
so, um, but having said all that, it would be very useful for a lot of things. In the steelmaking process, we used to use coke to reduce the iron ore,
Right.
uh, and you can use hydrogen. And if it's green hydrogen, you eliminate that. It's used, the biggest commercial use of hydrogen is in the plastics and chemicals industry to upgrade oil
Hmm.
to get higher value products. And so, again, you can substitute green hydrogen for that. That's also very good. Ultimately, of course, the big dream is can you take hydrogen and carbon dioxide to carbon monoxide and make an aviation fuel where the hydrogen and the carbon dioxide are from capture from the atmosphere or from very green sources.
Interesting.
There is becoming, I have a friend who did Tesla Shanghai. He's a very bright guy. He made a fortune doing that. And he's now trying to put together, if you converted integrate a system where you have renewable energy plus energy storage, plus all the other things, he thinks you can use this old, traditionally very old method called Fischer-Tropsch that's used in the oil and gas industry, where the oil and gas industry feeds it either oil or natural gas to make aviation fuel.
Okay.
You can feed the green stuff of hydrogen and CO2. He thinks that at these prices where we think will be there in 10 years, you can make sustainable aviation fuel competitive with petroleum.
Wow.
That's a big deal because it's not only aviation fuel, it's also for heavy duty transportation that needs very fast refueling. We use diesel.
Right.
So the same process can be used to make diesel fuel as well as the aviation fuel, which is mostly kerosene. So it's a big deal.
Well, it makes the science and the physicists, very blessed to have you. You're going to have to train and clone yourself so that we can keep this important research going. I want to give you the last word, and specifically about the power of us, the power of our choices. I often say that every cent we own, every moment we spend, and every choice we make, it's an investment in something. So, how can we invest in a sustainable future for our grandchildren?
Um, it's exactly what you said, through consumer choices, through personal habits. You have huge sway. The consumer choice cannot be underestimated. You recall decades ago when it was the very high-end clothing or sports shoes, sneakers were made in sweatshops in Bangladesh,
Yeah,
that the consumers say, wait a minute, you're exploiting these poor people, you're working them to death, you don't pay them any money, and you're charging hundreds of dollars for these things. Forget it. And they cleaned up their act.
yeah,
In order to have a certain brand image, they said, okay, we'll pay them decent wages. We'll clean up the working conditions. So it's a huge impact. Now, it also can be an impact in other consumer choices. We talked about, well, we don't use paper or plastic when we go grocery shopping. We have in the trunks of our cars these kind of cloth bags. It's like typically they're swag bags you get from anywhere. And I just take them in, you shop, you put the groceries in that, and then there's no more paper or plastic. And it works. And I went the extra mile and got thinly insulated cloth bags. You go online and buy them. Why? Because, it keeps the ice cream cold. So I think consumer choice is huge. Now, not and all not not all oil companies are equally committed to making a transition. They all say they are, but in the back rooms, some of them are resisting,
Yep.
but some of them are going forward. But the trouble with the forward-leaning oil companies is they're getting a lot of pressure. I used to advise Royal Dutch Shell,
Hmm.
not to help them find oil, but to help them make a transition from oil and gas to carbon-free stuff. And the last meeting I had, the CEO and the chair of the board said, um, "We can't do this anymore because we're being punished by Wall Street. We're not making as much, they're saying it's not as good investment as an ExxonMobil and Chevron, who make money the old-fashioned way.
For,
And so, because the stock would be punished, they said we can't do this anymore.
Mm,
I don't know what the consumer can do about this, but if there is a differentiation among the corporations who make the steel, make the plastics, make the chemicals, make everything else,
right.
to have a real commitment, and a real commitment is based on future investments. There was a time at that time, Shell was investing half their money into carbon-free stuff
Yeah,
of their new research, which
right.
is amazing. It's instead of 5% or 2%.
Right.
So the consumers would have, there would have to be groups that could verify how sincere this is. But I would say if a company is trying to do the right thing, help it. Um, uh, the differentiation in costs will probably be a penny on the dollar.
Yeah.
It's nothing. So I think consumer choice is a huge thing, and just remember the clothing industry. We are now seeing this in the way chickens are raised in the United States. Free range chicken people will pay a few pennies more
Yeah.
for more humane treatment of chickens.
Right.
Now, in the end, you don't want to eat less chickens, but and then there's a huge difference between chicken and beef, a tenfold reduction in overall greenhouse gases from
Yeah.
a chicken to a cow, and so there's all sorts of things one can do.
Yeah, and getting educated. I did send over a link for regenerative agriculture. Have you had a chance to look at regen agriculture and the way that they treat livestock? Because a lot of that beef footprint, isn't it like the raising of the forest, the raising of the land, industrial production, feeding them grain that's trucked in from elsewhere? And
Right.
if you
Right.
are eating local, regenerative, organic, do you think the CO2 is slightly lower or no?
It is, but it's still very inefficient to raise an animal. And then what do you do with all the manure in livestock? They could be grazing initially, but they go to these fattening pens. There's huge acres and acres of
Yeah.
steer right next to each other.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
that
kind
that's
of
a,
smelly and disgusting.
smelling disgusting, and
I know.
and actually very recently Netherlands has run into a problem because of some environmental laws. They don't know what to do with their manure anymore.
Mm,
So they're beginning to export manure to other countries. It's a crazy world.
yeah,
But look, the good news is science and technology will give us better choices, and a better choice ultimately means a more economical choice, not just for the environment, but like electric vehicles, it's just a better car, less cost, less everything, and it helps save the environment. So if you go down the list, we need to do these things. The biggest unsolved problem, I think, is in agriculture, fertilizer. Fertilizer not absorbed by the plant
mm,
uh, uh, turns into N2O by microbes in the soil. Most of that nitrous oxide goes up into the atmosphere. It's not in runoff that causes the algae blooms that people have heard of. And N2O is 300 times worse than carbon dioxide and lasts 100 years. It's about 7% of the greenhouse gas budget of the world. It's slated to go to 15. But we don't have a substitute for fertilizer. You don't go organic to feed 8.5 billion going to 10 billion. You need irrigation and you need something to make the plants grow
Yeah.
faster per acre. And so that's a unsolved problem.
Well, I thank you so much for your time, and it's just important for all of us to get the information from somebody who is in a seat not only of policy making but also a scientist. And so again, thank you for joining me today.
Okay, my pleasure. All right, bye.
So again, I want to thank Secretary, Dr. and Professor Chu for sharing his wisdom today. Please share this with your friends. You can watch it back at YouTube at Earth Gratitude. You'll be able to also watch it or listen to it as a podcast on Natalie Pace's Substack. Thanks again. One sunny day. Sunny day. At times I try to find some hope. The